Very good evening, all of you, and a good morning and a good afternoon. Okay, for people, okay, who are joining from different parts. I already know some people from Europe who are joined, and I'm sure from US and India who are joined. And it's a great privilege to have the creator of Disciplined Agile amidst us. Thank you so much, Scott, for giving your valuable time. I'm sure that you are so busy that your even 5 minutes are pretty valuable. And he had been working on Disciplined Agile, right? Now, Disciplined Agile is a newly acquired toolkit from PMI in 2019, but Scott and Mark have been working right for last 10 years or more, if I look at his profile. And not only that, I think I have been through his website called agilemodeling.com. And I think that's so great a knowledge that, the immense knowledge that he carries, that, he's also a creator of that agile modeling methods and agile data methods. I will request all of you to go through that website and see the wealth of the knowledge and the depth of the knowledge that Scott has. He has co-authored a lot of books, including Choose Your Way of Working, which is Choose Your Wow, which is kind of a Bible for implementing Disciplined Agile. So I don't want to spend more time introducing Scott because I guess everyone knows Scott by now. But thank you so much, Scott, to be with us for this talk. I think everyone is eagerly awaiting your talk about working smarter with Disciplined Agile. So over to you, Scott, and I will be there if there is any help. Thank you so much.
Oh, thanks, Ashish. I appreciate that. So let's jump into it. So as you heard, I'm along with Mark Lyons, I'm the co-creator of the Disciplined Agile Toolkit. At PMI, I'm the vice president and chief scientist for DA. I lead the IP team. We have a lot of great thought leaders in there, including Al Shalloway and Scott Bain and others. So we've really got an action-packed group of people that are bringing Disciplined Agile and related topics to the market and sharing them with you. So I'm gonna walk through some ideas here about DA. So how do we work smarter? How do we apply the Disciplined Agile Toolkit to really truly improve and hopefully become a learning organization? So I'll share a little bit of industry data with you, asking you, are we really there yet with Agile? Are we really achieving the benefits? And I suspect the answer is no, or it's not as well as we hope. And then I'll walk you through how we can actually truly improve what we do and go beyond some of the rhetoric that we see in the Agile community and the frameworks and the methods, and really get effective at what we do. And we're going to look at market leaders that have actually pulled this off and explore what they do and take their approach, not what you may have been told what to do. And then I'll of course take questions at the end. So one of the missions of PMI is to help people work smarter, to become change agents, to become a more effective in their careers, and to have better careers, and to help them to succeed. And certainly the Disciplined Agile Toolkit can help you to do exactly that. So how do we go about this? I'm going to walk through three-step process. So how do we go about learning new skills and identifying new skills, new techniques that work better in practice? So how do we supercharge our skills, both individually as well as within our teams and within our organizations? And then how do we optimize? How do we actually get really good? How do we become really effective in what we do in our organization and how our teams and our organizations work? So how do we actually design a way of working that fits the situation that we face, that is fit for purpose? How do we become leaders rather than followers? And then finally, how do we accelerate? How do we continue on to improve and to bring real value to delight our customers? So how do we react to marketplace changes, and how do we really deliver better value and real value and valuable functionality and services to our customers, or in the case of government agencies, to citizens? So we're effectively customers of the government. Strange way of looking at it, but it is it's a good way of looking at it, I guess. Okay, so anyway, so an interesting question to ask ourselves is, are we there yet? How successful has Agile really been? So it's been 20 years since the writing of the Agile Manifesto in the spring of 2001. And we've heard a lot of really good stories, and there's wonderful anecdotes, and it's certainly taken the marketplace by storm. But why aren't we seeing, after 20 years, why aren't we seeing truly agile organizations? Why aren't we seeing a lot of them? Why aren't we seeing more of this? And so, really, how effective has Agile been? And so, like I said, we hear all these stories, and you'll often hear, claims that with certain methods you can do twice the work in half the time, and you can become 10 times more effective, and whatever the story is. And certainly, some teams and some organizations have done exactly that. I've myself have worked in situations where we've achieved significant productivity improvements, but it's rarely because of the frameworks. It's almost always because that team, that organization was really messed up, and pretty much doing anything would have helped them. And so we have to be careful about some of the marketing rhetoric. We have to be careful about some of these claims and case studies and anecdotes. And we need to go to good sources of data. And one good source of information is the work of Dr. Don Reifer. I like his work for several reasons. First, he earned his PhD from a reputable university, exploring the question, how effective is Agile in practice? So his work has been vetted. What's also interesting is that he has a large amount of data. So it's statistically significant, and it's not biased. And what I mean by that is it's not coming from a certain method. So Dr. Reifer is not a Scrum guy. He's not a SAFe guy. He's not a Disciplined Agile guy. He's not a LESS guy. He's a researcher. So he's not, he doesn't have an axe to grind. He's not trying to market you to, use my framework, adopt my method. He's just trying to share information, and he consults and he helps organizations, but he's not selling you methods. And what's interesting is, so coming from this unbiased point of view of an actual researcher that's looked into these issues, he's finding that we're not quite seeing this 4 times productivity improvement or 10 times productivity improvement. We're seeing 7 to 12% on average. Now, certainly some teams do better than these are averages, right? So some teams are doing better, some teams are doing worse, but on average, we're seeing 7 to 12% productivity increases. That's okay. That's nothing wrong with that, but it's certainly not the promise. So can we do better is an important question that we should be asking ourselves. And I'm going to walk you through how I believe you can do a lot better than what we're seeing from mainstream Agile. So Disciplined Agile is a toolkit. It's not a method. It's not a framework. This is important. This is an important nuance. So where the methods and frameworks tell you what to do, they give you a collection of best practices, and they say, if you do these best practices, then you will succeed. Just shut up and do what you're told is basically the message. The DA toolkit's different. We walk you through, here's the issues you need to think about that you need to address. Here are some options, and here are the trade-offs of those options. So you choose the right technique that meets the needs of the situation that you face, because you're unique. You're a unique person. Your team is unique. Your organization is unique. You face a unique situation, and that situation changes. So these predefined prescriptive frameworks, even though they might offer some benefit, and they do, we saw some industry stats on this, they don't really get the job done. And one of the problems, why, is that the frameworks and methods, they solve a certain problem. So if you have that problem, and if you successfully adopt the framework, then you get benefit from doing so. And we're seeing that in practice. But then you've solved the problem. You hit the limits of the framework. It has nothing more to offer you. Now, there's all this wonderful rhetoric, it's the art of the possible, and, you can do anything you want. And all you've got to do is, add the techniques in and choose your own way of working and all that sort of stuff. But they give you no advice. They don't help you, other than maybe, hire expensive consultants, or hire our expensive coaches. And I'm a firm believer in coaches. I'll talk about that later. But they really leave it up to you. And this, I think, is the primary reason why we're not seeing a lot, we're not seeing the benefits that we hope for. It's because we're not taking it to the next step further. We're not getting beyond, in most cases, we're not getting beyond the frameworks and methods. So that's an issue. So what can we do about that? So in the DA toolkit, our focus is on business agility, not just on software development. So we don't limit ourselves to software development. And what happened about 2 years ago, we asked ourselves the question, well, the Agile Manifesto, even though it's a phenomenally wonderful thing, it's a bit dated. So the Agile Manifesto, actually I should call it the Manifesto for Agile Software Development, that's its actual name, focused on addressing the issues of software development 20 years ago, and it did it brilliantly. But it's not just about software development, and we've learned a few things in the last 20 years. So about 1.5 years, 2 years ago, we stepped back and we asked ourselves the question, if we were to rewrite the manifesto from scratch, if we were just to describe the mindset required for business agility based on what we know today and not being limited to just software development, how would we capture it? And this is what we came up with. So in DA, we believe in this collection of principles, such as delighting our customers and the fact that context counts, that we're all unique. So as a result, we need to have choices. We need to be able to choose our own way of working. And we want to be pragmatic. It's not just about Agile, by the way. One of the things you'll soon see is that DA, certainly captures a lot of great ideas from Agile and Lean, but we also adopt ideas from the traditional world as well, because there are some great ideas there. We can respect that, and we can leverage those great ideas appropriately. So it's really a hybrid. We also want to be enterprise aware. We want to go beyond the team-based focus of Agile and do what's right for our customers, do what's right for the organization. And sometimes that's inconvenient for us, right? So we want to have a more mature, a more robust view of what it is to be part of an organization. So we believe in these principles, and in order to fulfill these principles, we make promises. So we make promises both to ourselves and to the people that we work with, the people that we collaborate with and serve. So we want to embrace diversity and create psychological safety. We want to collaborate proactively with others, both with people within our team and within other teams. We want to improve our predictability by making all of our work and workflow visible. We want to improve continuously or continually, depending on which word you like. So we want to be constantly learning and getting better. So in order to fulfill these promises, we follow a collection of guidelines. We take a validated learning approach. We run experiments. We see what works for us in the situation that we face. We want to apply design thinking. We want to take a customer-based, usage-based focus. We want to have effective environments. We want to foster joy. We spend a large portion of our life working. So why shouldn't we enjoy it? And it's interesting, people who love their jobs, who love what they do, are more effective than the people who don't. So it's good for the individual, and this is also good for the organization. So as managers, as leaders, we want to do what we can to make the work environment as effective as possible, as joyful as possible. We can change our culture by improving the system, by changing the way that we work. So culture change is a critical issue these days, and it's hard to change cultures. And the issue is that culture follows practice. So if you want to change your culture, you need to change the way that you're working, and then over time, your culture will evolve to reflect this new way of working. So mindset tends to follow practice, which is a bit different than some of the rhetoric you might have heard from some Agile coaches. Because many people say it's all about mindset, and certainly mindset is important. This is one of the reasons why I'm starting with it, but it's not everything. We need, not only do we have to have the right mindset, we also need the right skill set, right? And that's actually can be difficult sometimes. So, we want to have semi-autonomous teams that are self-organizing. We want to leverage enhanced organizational assets. We want to reuse as much as possible. We want to pay down technical debt, all those good sorts of things. So the DA mindset reflects the realities of business agility, of looking at the bigger picture. Also, as you can see, it's mostly lean rather than agile, which is an interesting observation, I believe. The scope of Disciplined Agile, as I've said, is actual business agility. So these hexes represent what we call process blades or process areas. So there's 24 hexes here. One of them is software development, Disciplined Agile delivery. The rest are, well, not software development. So we look at the bigger picture and we ask, because the issue is all aspects of your organization have the potential to improve. So yes, we can improve software development, and the Agile community has done phenomenally well at that. But we can also improve our approaches to marketing, to finance, to vendor management, to HR, people management, to enterprise architecture, portfolio management, and others. Right? We can take an enterprise class approach to DevOps. So one of the things you can see here, the second of the 4 layers here is the disciplined DevOps layer. So we show how all aspects of DevOps fit together. So instead of talking about DevOps and then DevSecOps as an add-in and data DevOps as an add-in and so on, we look at the bigger picture and describe and show how it all fits together in a streamlined manner. So we have a more robust view of DevOps, which for many organizations, even if you're a tangible even if you're an organization that's doing tangible work like a construction company that builds office towers, you still have software involved. You still have, I hope you have some form of DevOps, tying all this together to enable your software to evolve with the times and to be an actual competitive advantage for you. So anyway, so this is the scope of Disciplined Agile. We look at the bigger picture. And you might also notice how in the middle, we have a governance process blade. So governance is not a swear word in the Disciplined Agile community. You are being governed and you deserve to be governed well. So we show how to govern effectively, because otherwise the governance effort generally isn't so good and is actually hampers your ability to be successful. And of course, many other efforts here as well. But from a management leadership point of view, we show how to govern disparate teams and do so effectively. So how do we go about learning some of the skills? How do we supercharge our skills as professionals or as teams? So earlier, we heard about the Choose Your Well book. I was the co-author of one of them. Now, one of the Choose Your Well book is 400 pages, and its focus is, for the most part, is on Disciplined Agile delivery. It overviews the toolkit in general, but then focuses on the team aspects and particularly Disciplined Agile delivery aspects of teams. But it's 400 pages. So we go into a little more detail than some of the methods. So in the picture here, you see the Scrum Guide. It's 13 pages of awesomeness. It's a bunch of great ideas, but it's only 13 pages. There's some details missing. It's a wonderful start. It's wonderful guidelines, but it's not really a book of knowledge. It's not really. It doesn't give you the details that you need to actually succeed at your jobs. It has some wonderful ideas. Don't get me wrong, but it's not sufficient. So this is different. So we go into more detail, and in a DA, we look at all aspects of the work. So for example, we purposely address technical practices, like, so for software development, we address testing and architecture and many other things, which Scrum purposely doesn't address. And, that's their business. They can make that choice, but they leave it up to you to figure these things out. So anyways, so the DA toolkit is a bit more comprehensive than some of the methods out there. So for example, where the Scrum might talk about epics and user stories and a few other requirements techniques, in DA we have several dozen that we put into context. So it's a bit different. Where Scrum has no architecture strategies, we have several dozen once again put into context. So one of the things we also believe in Disciplined Agile is to allow teams to choose their own life cycle. So Disciplined Agile came from the observations of many people, including myself and Mark Lyons, putting Agile and Lean into practice in a very wide range of situations. So we were out there working with organizations, helping them understand this, coaching teams, training people, rolling up our sleeves, doing this work. And when we would go into an organization, it was pretty easy to observe, if you choose to, that different teams work in different situations. So I could go into an organization and a couple of years ago, I walked into one organization and senior management told me they were a Scrum shop. right? Which is almost meaningless information. But anyways, they were a Scrum shop and they were having problems. So I came in and so I was in there for a while helping them out. And the very first day, you get greeted at the door and you get your security badge and they bring you in. And I'm walking through and they're giving me the tour, right? You always get a tour. So they're giving me the tour of a couple floors and they say, hey, this is the XYZ team, this is the ABC team, and so on. And I'm walking through and I can instantly see that there's a couple teams that look like they're doing Scrum just by the artifacts in their work areas, but there's also clearly some teams doing Kanban. There's also there's some other teams doing, I don't know what the heck they were doing. They certainly weren't doing Scrum. They certainly weren't doing Kanban, at least not from what I could tell from their work areas. So it wasn't a Scrum shop, and which is exactly what I expected. So it ends up that there was multiple teams working different ways because different teams in different situations will work in different ways. This is easy to observe. So what that tells you is that you need a toolkit that enables you to choose the right approach for the situation that you face, and then to evolve away from it as you need to. So in DA, we support an agile project lifecycle based on Scrum. We also support a continuous delivery, more of a DevOps type of a lifecycle, also based on Scrum. These are both Scrum-based. We have a lean project lifecycle and a continuous delivery lean lifecycle. These are both Kanban-based. So the top two life cycles are project life cycles. They have phases and there's milestones and it's a project life cycle. The bottom two are product life cycles or long-standing service team life cycles. They're not project teams. They're not project teams. They're long-standing teams, and they get led and guided and managed in a much different way, and that's okay. Use the right strategy for the situation you face. We also support what we call the exploratory life cycle based on lean startup, where you run learning experiments with minimal viable products, and you put something out in the marketplace, and you learn, and you get data, and you change your strategy, and you evolve your strategy until you finally evolve into something that's going to be successful. And of course, a program life cycle. So different teams in different situations will work in different ways. The program life cycle is all about how do you do a team of teams. So the point is that we support multiple life cycles because different teams in different situations work in different ways. So even though these teams work in different ways, we still need to guide them. We still need to support them. We still need to govern them. This is why having explicit governance in the toolkit is important, right? So, because one of the challenges that for management is, sometimes they're horrified. What do you mean the teams are going to work in different ways? We got to have them all doing the same thing. No, that is a phenomenally stupid decision. That's the only way I can describe that decision. It's stupid. It's just stupid, right? Because different teams will work in different ways. Scrum works in some situations and is a phenomenally bad idea in others. We know this. As professionals, we inherently know this. So we have to let the teams do the right thing. But we still need to govern. So management, the reason why management is horrified by this sometimes is because they still need to govern, right? They want to have, so you've got to have a light risk-based governance approach rather than a documentation-based governance approach. So anyways, it is possible to do, and we show you how to do it if you choose to. So how do teams choose their wow, right? So the reality is that there are hundreds or thousands of techniques out there that you could adopt. And you could choose to, and you can easily choose to observe this if you step back and just look at what people do. At this event, I'm sure you've been told about dozens, at least dozens of techniques and new ways of working by other people. So let's choose to observe that. So the way we capture choice in DA is via something called a goal diagram. This is an example of one goal diagram. There's several dozen. This one describes how do we go about exploring scope? How do we go about eliciting requirements from our stakeholders or needs from our stakeholders? And as I said, instead of telling you what to do, we walk you through, here's what you need to think about. Here are the decisions you need to make. So for example, when you're exploring scope, you need a strategy for exploring purpose. What are we trying to achieve here? Exploring usage. So how will people potentially use this solution, this service, this product that we're producing? How do we explore the domain, the data stuff? How do we explore the business processes, and so on, right? So we need strategies to address these things. And we might decide, well, there is no data. We're not capturing any data at all. We don't care. Okay, fine. So then we don't explore the domain, but that's still an explicit decision that we're making. So we should make it intelligently. Then to the right of each of these decision points, these purple rectangles, are options, potential techniques or strategies that you could adopt. When there's an arrow beside the list, that's an ordered list. So what we're saying there is the strategies towards the top of the list are generally more effective in practice than the strategies towards the bottom. So it's a bit of a maturity model, a continuous maturity model. When there's no arrow, then it's just a list. It's an unordered list. So even though each of these techniques have trade-offs, there's certain advantages and certain disadvantages to each one, and you want to use a given option in certain situations and not in others. We can't honestly tell you, these strategies are generally better than these strategies. It just doesn't work out that way. So the point is, an important point, is that there's no such thing as a best practice. Any given practice works well in some situations and is a spectacularly bad idea in others, right? So we need to choose the right strategy for us in the situation that we face, given our current culture, our level of skills, and whatever it is that we're trying to achieve. This is why choice is important if you want to be effective. So how does this compare with the frameworks, with the methods? Well, the frameworks and methods basically give you a bundle of best practices, and they tell you go off and do this, right? So they effectively redact your options, right? They don't tell you about these other strategies. They say, do this, do this, do this, everything will work out fine. These are the best practices, trust us. Well, no, you have options. Different people will work in different ways, and rightfully so. Why wouldn't you want to choose the right, the most effective strategy for you in your situation, rather than just do what you're told? Because if they've guessed wrong, because they don't know you, they don't know your situation, so how could they possibly tell you what the best practice is for you? They can't. It's not possible. So we need to be smarter than this. So to wrap this section up before we get into the optimized stuff, goal diagrams are effectively your pantry of ingredients. So if we're putting together a meal for this evening, then we want to go to the pantry, we pick the right ingredients, we pick the right techniques, and the life cycles are my recipes, my starter recipes. They get me, they teach me how to do basic things. And I'm still, as a cook, I'm gonna change things up. As I learn, as I get better, I'm gonna evolve the recipe, because I learn what my family enjoys and what they don't enjoy, and I learn about the combination of different ingredients, and I tune the recipes to my family, the needs of my actual family. This is what we do as professionals. So how do we optimize? How do we start actually implementing this in our organization? So earlier, we saw some industry stats showing that the adoption of these methods and frameworks aren't working out so well. We're seeing benefits. Don't get me wrong. We are seeing benefits, but not the major promises that we've been told. But there are some organizations out there that are phenomenally effective. So why don't we look at them? So for example, companies like Apple and Amazon and Google and Tesla, they do phenomenally well. And we've seen that, we were seeing this before COVID. We're certainly seeing it during COVID, right? These organizations are thriving in a new and different marketplace. Very, 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 very interesting. I recently heard some stats saying that these apex level competitors, like the Amazons of the world, are now, in some cases, 2 orders of magnitude more effective than the competitors at the lower end of the spectrum that are still surviving in their marketplace. 2 orders of magnitude. That's pretty impressive. So how did they get so good? Are they special? Was there something special about Apple or Amazon? No, they chose to get better. And the way they did that was they developed their own way of working. They tuned their strategies to meet the needs of the situation that they face. They don't follow, they're not followers, they're leaders, right? So they don't just do what they're told. They figure it out, and they choose to get better. They choose to continue to improve over time. So they follow a continuous improvement approach. So what happens, so teams within Amazon or Google or these other organizations, they take a Kaizen or a Gemba Kaizen approach, PDCA. So they're constantly improving. They improve in small steps. So they start by, they identify a problem or they identify something they want to improve. Then they identify potential solutions for solving whatever that issue is. They also identify how they're going to measure it because they want to know whether or not it worked. So then they try these techniques out. They give them enough time to either work or not. And then they assess the effectiveness. And then if they work, they adopt the strategy. If it doesn't work, they abandon it. They've had a failed experiment, and that's okay. They've learned, but then they move on, right? So what they want to do is they're constantly experimenting with new ways to solve problems. They're constantly on the lookout for what can we improve? What can we improve? Then they go to improve it and they measure it. And if they try new ways of working to make things better. So they're constantly getting better. They're constantly improving. So this is why Amazon is so effective now. They've been doing it for a couple decades and they continue to do it. So can we do this? Can we do better? So in DA, we are teaching you how to do this, but to do it even more effectively than what the leaders are doing. Because the challenge the leaders face is that they truly are on the leading edge. They face problems that nobody else has really run into. But when you're behind, when you're following, you are actually dealing with issues right now that other people have solved. Usually hundreds or thousands of other people have solved in the past or solved very similar problems in the past. So you can leverage their learnings. So one of the challenges with this continual or continuous improvement approach is that when you try out techniques, sometimes these experiments fail. And you still learn something, right? There's a bunch of rhetoric around, well, it's not really a failure because you've learned something, good for you, but you're still failing. Let's be honest, you're still failing. And that's costly and time consuming. Can we be better at this? Can we get smarter about this? Can we fail less often? There's an interesting question. So, and then, the other rhetoric is, well, it's not, at least we're failing fast, which is way better than failing slowly. So, I'll give everybody that one, but you're still failing. So if we can succeed earlier, if we can be smarter about this, we can improve faster. We can start narrowing the gap that we have with some of the leaders in whatever our marketplaces are. So the real issue here is with step 2, identifying the potential techniques. So if we can get better at identifying strategies that are most likely going to work for us in our given situation, we'll have fewer failures. We'll still have some failures. We're only human, right? There's no guarantees. But you can be smarter about this. You can have fewer failures. So how do we do that? Well, if we hire an experienced coach that, has actually, solved these sorts of problems before, or has at least seen this or heard of solutions for this, then, we'll get good advice and we'll probably choose better techniques. But do you have access to really good coaches? Do you have access to coaches that have dealt with the problems you've dealt with that you're now currently dealing with, right? Can you even identify these people? Can you attract them? Can you retain them? Can you afford them? These aren't, the good coaches aren't cheap. Or if you have access to a process knowledge base like the DA toolkit, you can make better decisions. You can learn how to leverage the toolkit to make better decisions. In particular, if you're a coach with the toolkit, you're way more effective than coaches without. So this is the idea. So how do we do that? So this is something that we call guided continuous improvement. And the basic idea is that if we have the humility to recognize that we are currently dealing with issues that have already been dealt with by other people, we can leverage their learnings. That's the basic idea there. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. We don't have to run weird experiments that have low probabilities of success. We can actually be better and smarter about what we experiment with and thereby succeed more often, fail less often and thereby succeed more often. So we improve faster and it's cheaper to improve. That's a pretty good thing. So how do we do this? So these are the process goals of team agility. We saw one of them earlier, exploring scope. So let's assume we've got a problem with the way that my team is exploring scope, and we're a product team, and we're bringing cars to market. So we're a car company, and the challenge we've got is that our existing customers love us. They continue to buy our cars, but we're not really expanding the marketplace. right? We're not attracting. So maybe our customers are older. They're baby boomers. So the baby boomer generation loves the cars that we produce. The millennials don't. They're stodgy. I don't want to drive grandpa's car. That sort of logic. What can we do to attract, and expand our customer base? We don't really understand what the millennials want. We keep bringing features to market in these cars, and the millennials just aren't interested for some reason. We don't know why. So we have a problem with exploring usage. So if we were business analyst experts, then, or if somebody on the team was a business analyst expert, because, well, you know what, here's what our problem is, here's what we need to deal with. But sadly, we don't have that expertise on the team. We got a few people. We're writing user stories and epics, and got a good product owner, and they're doing the usual stuff, but they're not experts in their field, right? They really don't know what their options are, because sadly they have a certification where most of their options are redacted. So we go to the Disciplined Agile toolkit, and we realize, what, we really don't understand how these millennials are going to use our cars. What do they want from our cars? What features would they enjoy? Would they actually pay for? We don't understand this different customer base or potential customer base. And we go look at this diagram, and sadly, we don't know anything about these other techniques, because we're not analysis experts, right? So we jump into the toolkit. So we open up the book. So this is a picture, I guess page 134 out of the print copy of the book, and where we have descriptions of these techniques. So the way we describe these techniques, we give you a brief overview. Here's what the technique's all about. In many cases, we give references to more details, so you can read books or read articles or watch videos about these various techniques. And most importantly, we give you enough information to understand what the technique's all about, and we point you to more details, because we're not going to turn you into an analysis expert, but at least we can help you make decisions. And then we also, more importantly, I think, is we discuss the trade-offs. What are the advantages and disadvantages of each of these techniques? So that way you can make a more intelligent decision. Will this technique work for us in our situation? So you're presented with a list of options here to solve your potential problem. With a little bit of reading, you can narrow it down to one or two. And in this case, we realize, what? If we were to work on personas and identify a few personas, and focus on what these millennials want, if we can get the personas right, which is still a bit of a skill, then at least we've got a shot at identifying user stories that would reflect the realities of what it is to be a millennial driver. So let's do that. So we're going to experiment with the persona strategy. So the advantage here is we've given you options, and you can make a better decision. So more than likely, now you could still fail. Personas might not be the way to go for you for whatever reasons. But at least you've got a very good chance of something that sounds like, you can decide that, this sounds like it's going to work for us. Let's give this a try. We can experiment with it and see if it actually worked for us in the situation that we face. So this is the sort of skill that we teach in the DASM and DASSM certifications. So DASM gives you basic fundamental Agile and Lean knowledge, as well as Disciplined Agile knowledge, and teaches you how to navigate the toolkit. DASSM is all about how do we lead these improvement efforts, and how do we get better at improving our team and leading a team or multiple teams. And part of that leadership effort is to lead the team through process improvement, to lead the team through efforts like this. So successful organizations take responsibility for evolving their own agility, for evolving their way of working. So many of you have probably heard the Spotify method. It was written up 7 or 8 years ago, maybe more now. Spotify is a Swedish music company. So adopting a method from a Swedish music company might not be the way to go for you if you're not another, at least a Scandinavian music company. But Spotify has evolved beyond the Spotify method. And they're pretty clear. They advise you don't adopt the Spotify method. The issue here is, why is Spotify so successful? It's because they are a learning organization. They choose to improve. They follow this continuous improvement approach. So you want to be like them. You don't want to copy them. You want to adopt the strategies that made them effective, which is continuous improvement. So that's a very important nuance. So while everybody's running around talking about tribes and guilds and squads, and very cool, good for you. That's not the secret sauce of Spotify. The secret of Spotify and Amazon and Google is that they do continuous improvement, and better yet, guided continuous improvement. So how does this compare? So when you adopt a framework, and we've seen the industry stats on this, right? When you successfully adopt it, you follow an improvement curve that looks like this, right? You eventually get better, and because the framework helps. Let's assume that you're successful, and let's assume you're adopting the right framework. The framework does help you, without a doubt. The industry stats show that, but then you peak out. You end up in method jail, as Ivar Yakison likes to say, because you hit the limits of the framework. The successful organizations, the Amazons and the Googles of the world, they do continuous improvement. They're constantly making small changes to their ways of working, and they adopt the strategies that work, and they abandon the strategies that don't work. So they're constantly adjusting and improving. This is how they got as scary and competitive as they are. With Disciplined Agile, you can do guided continuous improvement because you're in catch-up mode now. You can actually leverage the learnings of others if you choose to. So our advice, start where you are. So if you're currently a Scrum or a Safe Shop, great, that's what you're doing. If you're currently more traditional, great, that's what you're doing. That's your starting point by definition. Do the best that you can in the situation you face. And I know you're doing that already. You're professionals, you're already doing that. But always strive to get better. Always be experimenting and learning and trying to improve. And if you can get into this mode of doing constant improvement, that's how you will become this hyper-competitive, scary organization that's working smarter, not harder. And then how can we accelerate all of this? So earlier I was talking about how, the Disciplined Agile supports the entire, all aspects of organization, not just software development. But there's an interesting implication here. The implication is that teams work together. So my team, so say I'm a software development, on a software development team. Well, in order to get the job done, I've got to work with other teams to accomplish certain tasks, right? We're semi-autonomous. We collaborate with others. But those other teams might have different ways of working. They might have different mindsets. So for example, let's take a look at an example. So say we're a delivery team, and we've got an issue that our funding is about to run out. Now we're a really agile team. We've been going along, but now we got to get more money from the finance people, and they're more traditional. They want us to have more of a justify why you want give us a business case for this. Jump through these hoops, create these documents. This is a heck of an overhead. This is not very agile from our point of view. From the finance team's point of view, who has a different mindset than we do, this is all good financial strategy. This makes sense to them. This is what they know. This is what they believe in. And they're in control here, right? We can whine as much as we want about this, but the reality is at the end of the day, they're the ones with the money and we're the ones without the money. So we have to have an intelligent, respectful conversation with them in order to find a way to find a new strategy that we can experiment with. So this is a bit of a challenge. And if we go in with the attitude, well, we're agile, and the only way to fund an agile team is time and materials, because that's what we learned from my Scrum people, and blah, 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 blah. We're really smart. You're really stupid. You're part of the problem. We're agile. You're not. You're evil. They're going to look at that and they're going to go, yeah, whatever. It's like listening to a chihuahua yapping away. Yap, 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 yap. Agile. Yeah. So what? Go away. That's going to be, and what happens, and this is a very common problem. Many of you are probably saying, yeah, man, I'm facing that today, right? Don't know how to address that. This is an issue for us. Or say we have to work with the HR folks, the people management folks, in order to hire some people, and they've got their ways of working as well, and rightfully so. Or say we need to work with the release management people because we're not quite there yet when it comes to DevOps, right? So, and frankly, my organization has, say we're working for a large bank, we could have thousands of teams in flight. Well, there's a little bit of coordination there. I don't want 1,000 teams putting things randomly into production, right? We've got to coordinate this. So we got a release management process going on. So my team needs to work with the release folks in order to get stuff out the door. Fair enough. So how do we deal with these problems, right? Because we have to appreciate the viewpoints of these other people, and we have to negotiate something with them. So let's focus on the finance problem. So right now we're in a situation where the finance team wants to take a reasonably and effective approach from our point of view, right? They're doing a fixed price, a ranged fixed price approach, so it could be worse. And they have a formal request process for this. We see in this diagram that there's better ways of working because we have arrows beside these lists. So in the case of the funding strategy, there's 4 different ways that are potentially better for us. Now, one challenge though we have in this organization is in the past, they tried time and materials and it didn't work out. It was a failed experiment. So now they believe that this is a bad idea, bad way of working. So when the Agile coaches come and say, well, we're Agile, we have to do time and materials, and the finance people say, well, no, that doesn't work for us because they don't have the skills to govern it is what the real problem is. But anyways, they believe it doesn't work. They believe it's riskier, so they don't want to hear that. Go away, little chihuahua. Stop bothering me. So instead, why don't we have an intelligent conversation with the finance people? Why don't we instead choose to work with employees? This is what we teach in Disciplined Agile Coach. So how do we do that? Well, we go to the toolkit again. In this case, this is a screen. So instead of going to the book, we've instead decided let's go digital, and we've gone to the DA browser. So you can see the URL for that. So if you're a PMI member, you have access to the browser. If you don't, then well, become a PMI member, I guess. But anyways, we can go to the browser and we see the current approach, fixed price cost ranged, has a lot of there's trade-offs. Most of them are negative. The other two, we see 2 more approaches. There's actually 2 more not shown here, but the other 2 approaches, stage gate and time material, are less risky in practice. They have more benefits than disadvantages in this case. So, but the problem is if we just say, well, let's experiment with time and materials, that's more than likely going to fail for us in our situation because we already know the finance folks probably don't have the skills to govern it, and they might not even allow it. Okay. So instead we can negotiate, let's take a stage gate approach instead and experiment with that. So that is a strategy, even though it's not as good as time and materials, it's a strategy that has a better chance of succeeding in our organization. So we can have a win. So we make things better. And then next time, maybe we can experiment with time materials because now we're learning how to work together effectively across disparate teams. This is something we teach in the Disciplined Agile Coach certification. Then, of course, we have teams of teams and value streams. So a value stream begins, ends, and hopefully continues with the customer. And for a complex value stream, it might go through several teams. Like if it's a small, fairly simple value stream, this could be one team of people doing all this work. If it's a large, so let's say we're a bank, this could be many teams collaborating together in order to bring a certain service or product to the customers. And we want to optimize the flow of all this. So we have, groups of different people that need to work together. And obviously, and of course, same sort of problem, right? We could end up with an issue that, one aspect of this overall value stream isn't working very effectively. So how do we do? Or it's not working well with others. So once again, we can have, if we understand what, in this case, what program management's all about, and understand the mindset and, the types of ways of working for program management, we can hopefully negotiate a better way of working that optimizes the entire value stream. Because the problem here is maybe the program management folks are doing an awesome job at program management, but it's causing problems for other groups. And they might not be aware of that. So we need to we need to negotiate, we need to work together, across that, at least that portion of the value stream in order to streamline and fix that part of it. And in this case, we need to change, it looks as if we need to change the way that we approach program management. So this is something that we teach in DAVSC. How do we do this how do we improve across value streams or across the entire organization? So just to wrap up here before we go to questions, I want to leave you with this. It's not DA versus SAFe or DA versus Scrum or DA versus less. It's really Scrum plus DA. We fill in the blanks that the Scrum folks don't. It's SAFe plus DA. We fill in the blanks that the SAFe folks don't, right? We show you how we actually give you the skills to improve and tailor your approach, assuming you've adopted SAFe or less or something else, or, it's traditional plus DA, right? So we help you to improve and go beyond the frameworks and to actually tailor your approach to meet the needs that you actually face, and to have and to do this, and to also do this as the situation evolves and as you learn as well. So it's really SAFE plus DA, or less plus DA. So we want to help you to work smarter. PMI is a not-for-profit. We're not here trying to take over the universe. We're here to help. And DA is, I believe, an important part of your overall professional and intellectual toolkit, because we really do want to help you succeed and to become successful in your organizations and in your careers, and to become change makers and to have a positive impact on your teams and your organization and on the world. So we walked through 3 steps. How do we learn? How do we learn that we have choices and learn how to choose? Then we saw how we can optimize across teams and across disparate teams, and finally how to accelerate. How do we apply this across many teams and value streams and the organization? So all good, solid stuff. So are you following, or are you leading? DA will help you to lead and help your organization to become leaders in what you do, and to actually act like the leading organizations do, which is to own the process, to choose their own way of working, to experiment, to learn, to improve over time in small steps. So for a call to action, I invite you to learn more about DA. So consider getting certified and taking the DASM workshops. This is a great start at the intro level. Or consider, if you're already experienced in Agile, consider DASSM. This is basically Scrum Plus. Both these certs are Scrum Plus, and we look at the overall picture, and we teach you how to improve, and we give you solid skills that will last a lifetime. ProThoughts has 2 workshops coming up. One on the DASSM workshops, I should say, coming up. One on the 25th and 26th that's geared for Middle Eastern time, and one on the 26th and 27th that's geared for India time. So I highly suggest you look into them if what I've been saying is of interest to you. There's also the forthcoming Disciplined Agile Coach certification, teaching you these skills to how do you improve across disparate teams. And finally, DAVSC being released in June for how do you lead improvement across value streams and across your organization. So keep your eye out for both of those. These are senior level coaching and consulting certs. So if you want to distinguish yourself from your peers, those are the way to go. So thank you very much. I'm running a bit late, but I'm happy to take questions in the time that we have remaining. So let's go. Hopefully there's some questions.
Yeah, thank you so much, Scott. Every slide, every word was a very good learning for all of us. I was actually patiently listening, and although I had done and kind of doing a disciplined agile for some time, I think it was a very great learning, and the way you presented and where you actually put your thoughts, was amazing. Thank you so much. I think for all, we could have question and answers for Scott. He will be happy to answer. We have almost 10 minutes and we can take the questions for Scott. So you can type in the question and answer panel or also from the chat, and I can ask questions for Scott.
Oh, actually, I guess, yeah. So a question from Washia. I apologize for mispronouncing that. The DA toolkit sounds great, but I have a gray area. How is the discipline part enforced? Well, that's interesting. So in DA, we're not prescriptive. We don't enforce things. So we teach you how to be disciplined, but it's your choice. So the discipline comes in several ways. First of all, understanding that you've got choices, and just having that more mature, more robust mindset, but also in choosing to make choices and to experiment and learn and act on data rather than opinion. So there's a lot of discipline baked right in, but we don't enforce it. That's not what we're all about. And frankly, we can't enforce it. You're on the other side of the planet. How can I enforce that? Come on. But anyways, yeah, you need to choose to be disciplined.
Scott, another question which we normally get from a lot of people, especially from the construction industry. If possible, can you share your disciplined agile experience for manufacturing or construction organization? Is it relevant in that industries?
Yeah, it definitely is, and we're about to release a Disciplined Agile serial life cycle to make that phenomenally explicit. But I'm actually in my cottage right now, and we built it using a hybrid Disciplined Agile approach. We a couple of years ago, when we first contracted to have this house built, and it's a bespoke house. We actually decided to follow a traditional technique because we naively thought that would work. And it failed miserably. We invited the first project manager to find employment elsewhere. And then a second, she was a nice person, but way too traditional and just was not working out. The second project manager struggled a bit, was also traditional, but a little better. The third project manager took more of a hybrid, flexible approach. Because the requirements evolved over time. Things changed. This was there's some design some design features that are unique to this group of people that were building the house, and we needed to experiment with that and to learn as we go. And it really needed a hybrid flex approach. So the point I want to make is that I put my own money where my mouth is. We've applied. Now, this is only a house, right? But if you build like buildings, like say a skyscraper, on the ground, that's observably agile. If you actually get involved with the real construction, those people are doing what they need to do at the time to get the job done. They're collaborating. They're working together. They're changing. They're changing the approach sometimes. Now, there's things they can't fool around. I hope they're not fooling around with, but there's things that are also evolving. For example, when this house was built, the plans show, pipes should go in certain places and the wires should go in certain places. But then when it was actually wired and was actually piped, it was different because, one person made a decision and then somebody had to route the pipes around and so on. So things change on the fly. And it is what it is. And that's natural because the profession, because there's the original plan, but then the professionals who actually know what they're doing, the guy that's putting the pipes in, he looks like going, yeah, you know what? Yeah, that's a really stupid way to do things, but I really need to get this pipe from here to there. Best way to do that is this way. And that's what he did, right? Were the plans updated? Probably not, but it was certainly agile and flexible at the time. We put an extra window in at the last minute, which caused a bit of heartache and a few other things. But anyways, it's very possible to be agile. PMI is actually partnering right now on a lean construction area. So we're in the process of publishing and sharing that. So keep your eye out. So the answer is yes. This is definitely applicable in the tangible space as well as the intangible space.
I was on mute, sorry. Thanks a lot, Scott. That was a great one. This is a very common question on the construction people. Last question for the day for you. And I will answer all your questions maybe later. For everyone, I can send it to Scott. But Samant is asking one more question. How different is DASM from CSM? This is another kind of common question. So if you want to take that, Scott.
That's a great question. We haven't communicated that well, in my opinion. We're going to get better at that. But the DASM is basically Scrum Plus. So where Scrum focuses on some great mindset stuff and some great techniques, that's sort of a starting point for us, right? So and in some cases it's pre-work for people taking the DASM. But DASM really talks about how do we do agility from a project, from the entire project lifecycle point of view. How do we do not just Scrum? What about Kanban? What about these lean approaches? How does it all fit together? How do we address technical issues? as well. How do we make choices? You know, how do we find these choices? So we teach you how to use the toolkit. So it really is far beyond anything that you're going to learn in a CSM course. Now, CSM courses are great. They're great starts. Don't get me wrong. But if you really want to be agile in an enterprise class setting, and you want to understand how agile actually works in practice, then DASM is the way to go. And if you're an existing CSM, then you know, if you're really new to agile, then start with DASM. But if you've got a few years of experience, then probably DASSM, the senior Scrum Master cert is the way to go. If you've got real, you know, if you can honestly say you've got, you know, some solid, you know, several solid years of experience with Agile, then you'll find that the SSM certification workshop is fantastic, just for opening your eyes up. When we have people go through that, experienced Scrum people, we get feedback along the lines of, wow, we had no idea that other people are dealing with the issues that we're dealing with, and where we're getting no traction solving these problems. Not only can you solve these problems, you're giving us several ways to solve these problems that we're struggling with today on site at work. We get that feedback constantly from experienced Scrum people. So anyways, check it out. You know, it's yeah, and like I said, ProThoughts has got a couple workshops coming up in about 3 or 4 weeks, so yeah, consider it.
Thanks a lot, Scott. But I want to do a vote of thanks for Scott. I think it was a brilliant presentation and a brilliant talk. I think it was an eye-opener, I guess, for many here. And I think you summarized well, know how to cook a meal using DA, read projects for a meal. But yeah, so I think, you know, the way you explained about what is not there in typical Agile certifications, what's there more in DA, I think you articulated pretty well. And thanks for that, Scott. Thanks for your time once more. Scott, if you can run through a couple of slides. Now we have a LinkedIn group, so we can actually help them with that LinkedIn groups thing.
I should have put your slides earlier. Sorry.
Oh, okay. So it's a different slide. Okay. Yeah, after this. Yeah. So I'm going to share with all of you the LinkedIn group where we actually have a lot of PMI stuff for all of you. So I'm just sharing for everyone the LinkedIn group ID. You can join the LinkedIn group, and we have a lot of updates about Scott talks, webinar talks, videos, etc., which you can share. It's all free, so you can join that, and you can evangelize all together the Disciplined Agile. So that's the motto of this. And like Scott mentioned, we have the workshops coming in Middle East and India time. So that's what the next 2 slides were. Great. So thanks a lot, Scott. And I'm sharing the code for the talk. Just give me a second. And thanks once again, Scott. A lovely meeting you. And thank you so much for your time. And it was, I think, very valuable for all of us here. Thank you so much. Good night. Good morning. Good evening. Have a wonderful day, all of you. Thank you so much. Bye.
Have a good one. See you later, folks.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.